Survivor's ready. If anybody has a hidden immunity idol and you want to play it, now would be the time to do so.
The queen stays queen.
You said rustle feathers.
Did you do that?
Yeah. I'm supposed to climb you. We have ripe bananas all the time.
Dude, my prize isn't even $1 million. My prize was that I fell in love in this game. Love at first sight. Her name is Candace.
You officially go down as the dumbest survivor ever.
Welcome to Not Game, All Personal. Hey, we are a Survivor podcast here to talk about all things Survivor, more specifically the events of this week's episode. I'm Nathan. This is Tony. Tony, welcome back to your podcast. Another week of Survivor 46. How are we feeling?
How are we feeling about what? Life or Survivor 46? Because I didn't
they
have
not
fun
one in the
this
same?
episode. Nope, certainly not. Oh man, I did not have fun this week. But life's good. I'm living the dream, man. I'm having a time.
This season's off to a tough start. Is it fair to say?
Yeah. How you feeling about it? You feeling great?
You know, I'm feeling better than last week.
Really?
I am. I was hard last week. I came in swinging. I think here's a couple reasons why. I think my expectations were dampered by a lot. If you go back and listen, episode 2, I loved episode 2. So going into episode 3 after episode 2, I think was much harder than going to episode 4 after episode 3. If that makes sense.
Totally followed that.
I think this episode was shorter by 30 minutes. Fantastic.
Helped.
We actually saw some things on the other tribes.
Yeah.
Like way more than last week. A significantly more amount of dynamics. And we actually had tribal council. I think last week was tough, just it being a 2-hour episode of nothing happening and then actually nothing happening. Where this one it was like, okay, at least something happened. Although, can we count this as a tribal council? Like, does this qualify?
Man, it was... No. Final answer. It's not a tribal council. It was just an execution more than anything else.
I saw on Twitter someone... This is a very specific classification. People that left the game without quitting, without getting medically evacuated, and without getting voted out. It's just a unanimous decision, like the tribe decided, hey, this person shouldn't be here, which is technically what happened, right? There was no vote last night. The other two people...
I honestly don't think I processed that, because it was such a foregone conclusion. I think I was like half paying attention.
They
it
didn't
didn't
go to
click
vote.
to me that they just didn't vote. That's crazy.
The other two people...
My Lord.
Brandon. Remember Brandon?
Yeah.
Brandon Hance. And, oh my gosh, why am I not thinking of his name now? This is bad. From,
Varner?
Yep, Jeff Varner.
Jeff Varner. Yeah.
So that is the company that Bhanu's with.
Tough company, dude. That's tough company.
It's horrible. It is horrible to group him in with those two people, but that is the only time that has happened before, where Jeff says, okay, so we're all on the same page. We don't need to vote. We'll just do this. And the tribe said yes.
I think that's the worst company you could possibly have.
Yeah. Scoopin would be up there.
Oh, all right. Yep, there he is. There's a name. All right. Moving on.
Yeah, so Bhanu's gone. It was tough because it was just inevitable, and I go back and forth because part of me is like, I appreciate that they didn't even try to hide the edit to fake us out or anything, but at the same time, you could just turn your brain off for the last 15-20 minutes because there was no decoy, there was nothing. It was just oh, he's going home? Oh, we're just going to get 20 minutes of him processing and telling his life story, I guess. It just wasn't really the game of Survivor, I guess.
The man dropped to his knees to beg somebody to keep him. And they were just like, no, I'm not doing that. Like, it was crazy. Just like the descent that you saw him go through, and then have this like, oh, I'm share his story or whatever. Did you see all the stuff online throughout the week that he's an actor and that is this all a ploy and he's actually very self-aware? Did you see all that?
I did see that, yes. I didn't really look into it too much other than like, okay, he's an actor, you know. I think that's confirmed, but I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't have any strong opinion whether or not it's fake or not.
All right, all right. I mean, yeah, I don't think there's no part of me that thought that that was some sort of performance he was trying to put on, but that was the
Sure.
the talk of the town this week.
I
I
still am baffled that everyone seems to be on the same page though, that like no one really likes him coming off this show. There's part of me that is feeling like a little sad, and I know you were kind of there last week and I was like, "No, get him off." But like now I'm like, "Oh man, like I don't think he has any fans coming out of here."
Why was he picked by casting? Like that's the interesting part. I guess you can't ever really know how they're gonna act in this situation, but he had to have because he's incapable of lying. We know that, and so he had to have told them that he wanted to win 1,000,000 hearts and not $1,000,000. And I don't know if that just sold them, and they were like, "Yep, love this guy in," or what that is. But he
Yeah.
seems incapable of playing the game. This is if anybody ever tells me you can play an honest game in Survivor, I'm gonna point to Banu and say, no, you cannot. That's just factually incorrect.
It truly is bizarre. What they saw in him to think that he would play this game, and I don't know. I think like this is where I think a lot of people point to like, oh, this is the new era Survivor. This is what Jeff wants on the
Hmm.
show, and I don't know if I'm ready to go that far yet because and maybe that's just because I want to believe that Survivor is still in theory the same game that it's always been, and they want people to play that game. And so I think like if this is the case where like these are the people we want on here, we want people who have this compelling story for the sake of them overcoming something on this island and to hear their story at tribal council, I'm like I don't know if I'm interested in that show. I don't know if I want to watch people have this redemptive arc in their life and just
Hmm.
not play the game. I want to watch people play the game of Survivor.
I completely agree. I think it helps that we have seen players who feel like they are there to play and are good at the game, even though we felt that shift. So part of me thinks that it's just a big shift in editing, but who knows? My stance and my takeaway in general is that I'm just mad at Randon for hurting his arm, so we had to go through another week of Banu.
Yeah, yeah, no, completely agree. And because like here's the thing. I think if you look at the progression of the season, like you want some back and forth, which is not something we've been getting the past few seasons. As far as like this tribe goes to tribal council, this tribe goes to tribal council. Like we're just getting the same tribe going to tribal council. We have a tribe that lost a member, but we didn't get the joy of seeing them at tribal council. So now,
Hmm.
I like that just extended a week of nothing. Like it's just such a bummer that I don't know. The season is just moving on, and we're going into episode 5 having learned almost nothing, even about the people on the Purple Tribe. Like,
Hmm.
I feel like we haven't fully gone into depth on their dynamics because we're so concerned with Banu.
He's just been the focus. He's just been so yeah, just he wanted everybody's heart, so they just showed him all of him, and I don't know. I do think there is an issue overall with the fact that it's becoming so consistent that one tribe is just losing a ton and just getting crushed. That's not fun to watch. You want to see the back and forth. You want to see every tribe ideally going to tribal council and this just one tribe getting obliterated every season it feels like. There needs to be some level of adjustment. Like maybe give them their flint after the first night if they don't win it. Whatever it looks like. There has to be something there. And do I think well, let me ask you, do you think that that is the X factor, the fact that they're not able to like get fire and get good sleep and get like actually cook food. Do you think that's the X factor for the team that continues to lose?
I actually do think it's a large part of it. I think there's probably a couple factors. And I think I mentioned this either last week or the week before, but I do think there is something to the mentality of like once you start losing, you just spiral. Where it's not even
Mm-hmm.
like they're necessarily worse at these competitions. And like we've seen every single week, it comes pretty close to the end about who's going to win. unless editing is just completely lying to us. I don't know, but it appears to be very close, like it's anyone's game. And so I do think it's largely like a mental game. And I think when you do take away those elements of fire and shelter and all these things, that like, I don't know, it does something to them. And it also is like, I will say in their defense, it's a bummer that they actually did come in first in a challenge this episode. It just
Mhm.
wasn't the immunity challenge, and this
Yeah.
happened to be one of those episodes where they had two. Because like sometimes it's just one challenge where it's like reward and immunity is up for grabs. Um, so that's a bummer because like formatting wise, I feel like this new era has been a little less consistent of how they do that. Where sometimes there's a reward and immunity, sometimes there's only immunity. Uh, and then sometimes I think it was season 40. Remember there was that immunity challenge that wasn't even shown. Like
Yeah,
they
yeah,
just
yeah.
didn't put in the edit. Yeah, so I don't know. It's like
Reward challenge.
that's right. Yes, they would have to show the immunity challenge.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. I do think it's worth noting that in a lot of these situations in the last few seasons, they've chosen loyalty over tribe strength. And so I think we've seen
Mm,
that come back to bite them a lot. So I think specifically back to 41 when they got rid of Tiffany, or they kept Tiffany.
yes.
That was a wild move and probably not the smartest move, but they wanted the loyalty, and so that's what they decided to go with. And if you make that decision, that's kind of what you get. And I wonder if they had kept Jelensky, gotten rid of Jess, how that second challenge would have gone. Would they have potentially done better without him or without her? I don't know, because I think Jess was probably the weakest link on the tribe. But that is something to consider. But also, the only season that we've ever seen where they kind of have a have and a have not tribe was season 14. And spoiler alert, if you haven't seen it, pretty sure the have not tribe didn't win a single thing the entire time. They just lost. That's all they did. And so that kind of just happens when you that's an example of you don't have anything, so you don't aren't able to be as successful as the people that do have things. So
Yeah. No, I
we're
mean
seeing a
I think
pattern,
it's
and there
yeah.
might be a reason for the pattern, but it's there, and it's something I think to watch for sure.
I'm just going through very quickly to kind of see if like what I'm noticing about the pattern. It is worth noting. I think Survivor 43 is the only one where it was a little more back and forth with tribal. You had yellow, then red twice in a row, then blue twice in a row, then so like that was like okay, that's something there.
Yeah,
Survivor 44 with the Tika purple, right? The Jam Jam Carolyn Carson.
yeah, yeah.
They had Bruce medically evacuated episode 1. So there's
Mm-hmm.
the strength right there.
Yep.
So I think that's a good example. So I think that yeah, there is something to that. Now I think my issue with that is I'm not sure how much more helpful Jelinski would have been, but yes, probably more helpful than Jess, I guess.
Yeah. And yeah, it's just you see a pattern, and I feel like people are very quick, and I'm one of them, very quick to be like, oh, there's a pattern here, there's a problem. But if you analyze the pattern a little bit and look a little bit deeper, you see, oh no, they're actually just losing people who are the strength of that tribe, which really hurts in these early challenges.
Yeah, yeah, I think there's probably something on both ends there. And I don't know, maybe if enough people watch these seasons and then eventually go on the show, they'll be able to figure out, the meta here of how to
Hmm.
fix this issue. But right now it sucks as a viewer. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Well, should we dive into Yanu, the Purple Tribe, a little bit, and then just move on and
Yeah,
talk about some of the interesting stuff we saw in the other ones?
I think that makes the most sense here. Um, outside, I mean, I guess not even really outside of Banu. I think the biggest kind of talking point was the response to Banu kind of spilling everything to
Yep.
Liz and Ben Summit, which Banu came clean about, and then was also, I think, both apologetic but also confused. I couldn't quite get a read on like what, like okay, wait, so you recognize it's a problem, but you also don't. Like I couldn't quite tell what his motive was with telling them that. Uh, it's
And I
just very
feel like
confusing.
he intentionally like softened the blow too. Because I don't think he just said like, because I don't think they asked, oh, are Q and Tiffany close? And I don't think he was just like, yeah, they're close. I'm pretty sure he was like, those two are so tight. They're like,
Yeah.
bet like they're people. But Kenzie, she's running. Like he definitely softened the blow, so he knew what he was saying was bad, which makes me think that he was playing up, like playing dumb, thinking that that would be an effective way for him to do, and then like being teachable on how to say things, thinking that that was gonna save him. I don't know. That felt like his intention to me.
Yeah, and I think like we've seen this before where I think you have people who like pride themselves on their honesty, but like you're not really being fully honest either.
No.
Like you're being very specific on what you're telling them and what you're not telling them. And you can say whatever you want about like, "Hey, I told you the truth. I was upfront with you about what I said to them," but you are doing it, you're presenting it in a way that isn't fully honest. So,
Hmm.
yeah, it was just bizarre. And then it kind of turns into this, yeah, like coaching session, I guess, where he wants
Yeah.
everyone to train him on how to play Survivor. I do wonder if this did kind of stem from Q taking initiative with him over the past few
Hmm.
episodes of like, hey, I'm gonna train you, and then he just kind of figured, okay, Tiffany and Kenzie will help me too. Um, I don't know. If I was in their position, I think I would have pulled a Kenzie as well and been like, what? No, why? Like this is this is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's so hard with him because it's so hard to tell how much he's being sincere about, because he talks about how he's a super fan, and then the way he plays the game, that feels like it can't possibly be true. And so you think that he might be playing dumb because that seems like the only possible solution to what's happening or what we're seeing. But then like goes in this whole story about how he's like honest and it's just how he wanted to play the game. Like it just doesn't. None of it all fits together nicely for me to understand like how much he actually knew, because it doesn't make sense to me that he would be a super fan and really be that bad and unknowledgeable about what he was doing.
Right. No, exactly, 100%. Because if you're out on the island and someone needs to teach you the basic rules, like they're literally walking, like giving him lines. I'm like, so what do you say if somebody approaches you and asks you this? And then he's like reciting lines back to them. I'm like, this isn't gonna work. And I'm so grateful that Q came to his senses and be like, I can't, like I gotta vote him out.
Hmm.
Because I was so worried. I was like, Q, if you do this, like I understand the Kenzie issue, and I'm not against eventually getting her out to get Tiffany for yourself. That all makes sense to me. But like,
Hmm.
please do not do it because you think that Bhanu is someone that's going to be loyal for you in the long term. I'm so glad that he realized that that was not the right way.
Yeah, it would have really hurt to see to see him make that decision. Granted, Banu and the merge would have been a sight to see. If everybody was just involved and it was like it wasn't just three people or four people that we were looking at, that might have been interesting. But ultimately, he just needed to get out of there. Uh, it just it blows my mind. I hope those three are successful. I want to see what's going on at the other tribes. But yeah, I think that's all I got, man.
How
It
do
was
you
painful.
how do you feel about the three that are left there? I mean, do you think this is the turning point? Like, let's say there isn't a tribe swap next episode, which I actually have no idea if there will be or not. Let me look it up actually real quick. When was the one last season? Because that might give us an indication. But like,
I'm
if
not
if they
sure.
do stick together, do you think this is enough tribe strength now that they could win an immunity challenge?
They seem like a pretty strong three, and I don't know that Banu was the one that was really making them win challenges. Honestly, I think they'll work together better than they did with Banu and with Jess, because like they were just screaming at each other before, and I feel like these three are pretty tight and they trust each other. I feel like they're going to be successful. I do.
I hope they are. I do, and mostly for the sake of like seeing another tribe at tribal council.
Mhm.
If they're not, I mean, do you think that it would turn into a Q and Tiffany going out for Kenzie? Like, is that
Yeah.
that feels like the most logical setup right now that we're gonna see
Mhm.
played out?
Either way, I think Tiffany's in the perfect spot. I think she's the one that the other two are fighting for. to get on their side, and so whatever she wants to happen is going to happen. Tiffany's played this pre-merge with this tribe extremely well so far. She's my favorite on this tribe by a lot.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I also think they would be smart to take in the knowledge of what Banu told the other tribes as well. So,
Mm-hmm.
if Kenzie is this mastermind, let's say, I think either way they need to utilize this. And I think it's good that they've already talked about this before, as far as like, hey, Kenzie is someone we need to watch out for. Because let's say they go to a tribe swap or a merge and Kenzie's still in the game, there you go. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you can pin her with these other people saying like, hey, yeah, Banu told you she's the mastermind. Yeah, you're right. Like me and Tiffany, yeah, we're close, but we're close because we had to be because of Kenzie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think even if they do, like the three of them go to tribal, they get Kenzie out. I think that would be seen as a positive for the other tribes as well, because if the other tribes are viewing her as a mastermind, oh, Q and Tiffany took out Kenzie for us. That's great. Now we're merged. Now we don't
Mm-hmm.
have to worry about them as much. So I think it's a win-win for the two of them. I just think like Kenzie, I don't know what you do. I think this target's been pinned on you. Your tribe's aware of it. Everyone else is aware of it. Like I don't know what options she has at this point.
Yeah, I think she's got the bleak outlook for sure, and I feel like she can't be making any moves. She just has to fade into the background, like she's just an extra vote, and she doesn't make any decisions at least until like final five. Then she can start doing some stuff again. Honestly,
Yeah.
there's a part of me that wonders if this tribe goes to travel again. God forbid. What if Tiffany takes out Q? Because then she's free and clear, right? So she goes into the merge with no attachments, so that's a risk because she might not connect with anybody on the other tribes, but I think she
Mm-hmm.
would. But you get rid of Q, so you're no longer a duo and no longer a threat that way. Kenzie is still there, so she's still just a major target. I think the only risk is you get taken out to weaken Kenzie.
Um, yeah, that's interesting. I think it all depends how. I think it depends on a lot of other things. I think I don't know if this is a fair comparison, but I think of last season when it was just Caleb and Emily that made it to the merge. I think there was part of it where it's like, are they just gonna slide under the radar now? Clearly that didn't work because Caleb was too much of a threat. So I don't know if that
Well,
says anything
I was,
about. No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I feel like Caleb and Kenzie, at least how they're viewed currently, are very, very comparable.
Sure. So you think that Tiffany might slide more into the Emily role?
I think so. And
Mm-hmm.
they both seem like calculated game players. Emily's has her whole story arc, of course, and Tiffany doesn't have that. But
Right.
honestly, that feels kind of comparable to me in some ways.
Yeah, no, I would buy that. I think, but that's what I'm saying. I think there is a there is a good way to enter a merge being the minority between two larger tribes, but I think it could go either way. Like you could walk out as a
Mhm.
Caleb or an Emily, you know, and I don't know how to determine what that is, and maybe it is just your reputation going into that moment where yes, Caleb was seen as this very social strategic threat, and if Kenzie already has that target, maybe that is good to take her with you, knowing that if people come for the minority, the people in between, she'll go before I do.
Hmm. No matter what, you're running the risk of running into a foursome like last year, and so that's the thing. Is there's those factors that we can't really account for. But I think
Yeah.
it'd be interesting. I think it'd be an interesting move in that situation to sacrifice Q, because I don't know if Q is the person I'd want to play with necessarily. But
It's
I
so hard to
digress.
tell because I think like there's parts of me that's like he is this loyal person that
Hmm.
is decent at the game. Like he knows what he's doing. I would say
Yeah.
he's more loyal and honest than like Banu. Like I think I would trust him, but yeah, I don't know. Like I don't know how much he can actually help someone's game at the same time.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
did look it up last year. It was after 3 straight tribal councils for yellow that they did a tribe swap.
Oh.
So th- this week was the third for purple. So theoretically they might swap it next week if they're following that track, but we did have Randon go in between, so it's not the same circumstances. So because last time it was like a 5-5-3, Now it's a 5-4-3. So I don't know if they view Randon as being like, oh, look, it's not as lopsided, which would be stupid, but it's possible.
Yeah. Well, wasn't it a 6-6-3 last year?
Oh, you're correct.
Wouldn't it have
Yes.
been?
What am I saying? So okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yes. 6-6-3. This year it's a 6-5-3.
yeah. Yeah, do you think that's something they plan ahead of time, or just like they see how the season flows and then decide what to do from there?
I don't know. I want to say they probably saw the pattern last year, because the fact that like they've never done it in the modern era, like a proper what am I saying? A proper tribe swap. That, well, I don't know why it's a tongue twister. Uh so it, to me, it feels like too much of a coincidence that they happen to roll that out at the same time. It's like
Hmm.
the worst massacre of a tribe.
Yeah, yeah. That's fair. That's fair. I feel like they usually have it planned out. That's always been my kind of thought process, but they have to have contingencies if the game is going a certain way.
Yeah, I mean, I would say they have to. Um, but I don't know. Maybe they'll look at this tribe and be like, okay, they're not going to be horrible. Yeah, I don't know.
It
Okay.
might be. All right,
Well, let's
forget
talk about
Yanu.
someone else.
Who you want to talk to about next, Nathan?
I guess we could talk about yellow or orange. It's orange. It's orange this year.
Nami.
That feels like a good place to talk about, right?
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah, we saw some stuff from them.
I
Soda's
think,
got a Goda.
yeah, I mean, I think that's like the biggest storyline right now,
Hmm.
is that people are just kind of onto her being very social. Some of them slightly annoyed. I don't know if Hunter ever said he was annoyed, but he always looks annoyed.
Yeah.
Like when he's sitting there and she's singing and he's just like, I'm trying to work. And he was the one, I'm trying to remember this because we don't ever see them. He was the one that was like a camp counselor, right? And that was
Hmm.
like, I'm
Who
so.
like built all that stuff for himself, and yeah.
Well, I think it was episode 1 where she was like, "Hey, I was a camp counselor, so I got all the songs ready to go." And he's like, "I was also a camp counselor. I hate these songs." But he didn't want to say that out
Yeah.
loud.
Oh yeah, of course not.
Yeah.
It's so
So
interesting in like modern Survivor that the social threats are the ones you worry about this early in the game. Like
right.
Soda is the one that they're worried about right now. And I guess it makes sense because you don't want to get rid of the physical threats yet, so get rid of a social threat if they're not going to hurt you competition wise that much. Actually, I
Hmm.
don't hate that logic.
Yeah. No, I think it does make sense. Actually, I feel like we talked about this either last year or the year before, um, or season before, because there was that theory, that one of the previous uh contestants made, because remember we saw that pattern maybe like 2 seasons ago where it was like all the same archetype of like the strategic like female was going out early,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
they were throwing out that theory as being part of it, as like this new modern era is focused so much on like tribe strength at first, and that's how you win. And so they go for like that next strategic threat as far as like who is socially going to be dangerous. And I think we do kind of see that in a way where it's like you look at Venus and you're like, oh, Venus, she's going to be dangerous later on. We're going to have
Hmm.
to worry about her eventually. And now it's like Soda, same thing. It's like, oh, she's social. People like being around her, to her face. But so I think there's something there.
Yeah, it's so there's definitely something there. They're definitely playing that way, but it's easy to tell the physical threats. Like Hunter is so dominant in these challenges. It's insane to me how easily this is coming to him. So that's easy to see, and it always has been. But the people who are like the social threats are so difficult to identify, and the people who are the strategic threats are the same. Like Venus is literally just because she's pretty and reminds them of Parv. Like that's genuinely what it feels like. At least that's what they've said is the reason that she's a risk. And so it puts people into these like the spot of making assumptions just based on like, oh, they're an extroverted personality, they must be strong socially and they're going to be a problem. Like, is Soda going to be a problem? I don't know. I think she's kind of annoying personally, And I feel like people might think that deep in the game too, when it's like 25 straight days of songs. That gets annoying. And so they're just making so many assumptions and kind of just a shot in the dark of who's going to be an issue socially later on.
Yeah. No, that's a valid point. I also think part of it could be when you see like a physical threat, you are very aware of what their strengths are and what they're capable of. So that
Mm-hmm.
might be an easier thing to keep around because you at least know what to look out for. Where like a social
Yeah.
threat, that's a little more hidden, you know? So it's like the enemy that you are aware of versus the enemy that is doing things behind your back.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like all you need is, again, I think Hunter is also very social, which not a lot of people pick up on, except for Venus. Venus has noticed it, I will point out.
Yep.
But like for him, it's like, okay, once he loses a challenge, we'll vote him out easy. For someone like Soda, if she is as strategic as they are hyping her up to be, that's scary because you don't know when you need to watch out for her.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. But as soon as she starts getting noticed, that's so interesting. Because you're like, they're playing a great strategic social game, but they aren't because you noticed. Like Kenzie, everybody thinks that she's playing this mastermind game, so she's not actually playing a good strategic game. Same with Soda at this point. Same with Venus. Like anybody who people are noticing, you're not
Yeah.
playing that great because people noticed. The people who probably are people like Tevin, because we haven't really noticed anybody talking about going after him. And to be fair, they're not telling us everything. But like there's people like that where it's like, he doesn't seem to be an issue right now.
That, yeah, no, I've never really thought of it like that. It truly is a paradox, though. Like, once you identify a social threat, they don't really become a social threat anymore.
But at the same time, and we never talk about edits here. That's just not something we talk about. But if we were
Never.
to talk about edit,
Yeah.
they're obviously going to show us somebody and say they're a threat, and it's all we saw it in season 41 where they're like, this person's a threat, and we're like, are they? Why are they saying this? And then that person won. And so I don't know, it's an interesting thing to kind of keep an eye on that too.
Right, because the game has to inform us as the viewer who is a threat, even though we're not seeing it. Unless you're
Mm-hmm.
Gabler, then they don't have to tell
Mm-hmm.
you anything. And
Yeah, because he's lurking under the water like in Alec Gabler.
that's the only thing they need to foreshadow. They say, "Hey, what if we spend this entire season using that analogy of him lurking under the water?" Then they're like, "Wait, you mean we don't show anything?" Yeah, yeah. We're not going to show the audience anything. Get it? Because he's
It's
an
it's still so crazy to me
Yeah,
that
yeah. No,
Jesse and
go on your
Cody were
go on your
like
Gabler rant. Come on.
that they were just like all in on like, yeah, Gabler played us. He's played such a great game. It's like, no, you guys were controlling him. There was no you just got voted out because nobody was worried about him because you guys were actual threats. And yes, there's something to like if you're a big threat, they made moves late in the game where they had to make moves. Jesse was one immunity away from winning the game. That's just he was one fire making away from winning the game. That's just the reality of what the game was.
Yeah,
And he was
but
the biggest
whoever
threat.
wins fire gets to add that to their resume. I think you're underplaying how important fire making is to the entire 26 days of Survivor,
Dude,
Tony.
he made that fire so fast, like blew
He
my
deserves
mind,
the
man.
win. Forget everything else that happened the other 25 days. He made fire on that day.
But then the next season, what was it? Heidi made fire super fast, and it didn't matter at all.
Yeah, that's true. Well,
She like
fire's
beat his record, and then it was
well,
like, yeah, but it actually doesn't matter this time.
Tony, fire's not the only thing that you had to vote on. Come on.
I feel like I'm getting mixed signals, Nathan. All right, back to the Nami tribe. We get
what
so
are we talking about?
philosophical with this sometimes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
they were
mean,
there.
Soda,
Thing was
Soda's
the big thing.
probably yeah. That's kind of it. And they're
Mhm.
and everyone picks up on it. You know, everyone's saying it. Hunter's like, oh, I've thought this. Yeah, cool, let's go. Liz is like, yep, me too. So, I feel like that's gonna be the storyline, which I think could make sense. Again, I never believed that Venus was gonna be the first one to go from this tribe, just because that feels too obvious. And for several episodes, that's all we got was like Venus
Mhm.
is on the out. So is she gonna win the game? Probably not. But like, I think she's gonna make a deeper run than most people on this tribe.
Mhm. Yeah, I think I would definitely agree because you don't take away you don't take that shot right away. You wanna when you have the numbers, that's like when you have a group of people, that's when you try to take shots since they're gonna do that.
Mm-hmm.
I did enjoy Tevin. I felt for his backstory. So that was one of those. Like I do, I'm not totally against getting a little backstory. I just don't think everybody on the season needs to have this like sob story for why they're there. But definitely felt for Tevin and thought that was a cool, pretty special moment.
Remind me what? Cleaning out the fish, right? Because that's what he did with
Yeah,
his
cleaning
dad.
the fish. Couldn't he hadn't done it with his dad who had passed away.
Right. Yeah.
And
No,
obviously
very touching.
my dad passed away, so it hit the heartstrings for me. So it was just
Yeah,
a personal thing, probably.
that adds up. No, it was beautiful. Yeah, and I agree. I think like it's a good relevant story, and I think I
Hmm.
appreciate it more when it ties into the game of Survivor. You know, like here is an activity that is very meaningful to me, and here is why. Um, versus like I don't know, here's this vague backstory I have that isn't really relevant, but now I'm on an island, so now I'm thinking about it. You know, like
Hmm.
I think those are the ones where it's like this is kind of forced because like yes, everyone has a backstory. You know, like I think we could shove anything in here, but no, his felt great. Glad he got to clean out some fish. It was one of those things where I'm like, huh, how do you clean out fish? That was my thought. I was like, I've never. I think I would just throw it on the
Well, you
fire.
just gotta scale them. You gotta scale them, and then once you like, you just cook it, and then just don't eat certain parts of the inside. I
Well,
think.
here's the other thing. I'm allergic to fish, so that's why I can never play Survivor.
Oh yeah. No, I don't like rice or coconut, so I couldn't play Survivor either.
Well, also, what is a Liz allergic to? Everything? Like the fruit?
All the fruit, yeah, all the fruit and coconut on the
All the
island.
fruit. That's just every fruit. I'm
All the
out.
fruit on the island.
That's tough.
Yeah, it's a tough look.
Anything else on Nami?
No, they're there.
I know you mentioned Hunter dominated, but he truly dominated again. Like holy cow, this guy's just insane.
You have to, I just don't understand why you don't go into this game. And same with Carson and a couple people that have done this in the past. Go into the game. It's okay if you don't win that quickly. It's okay if you miss a couple on purpose because you know you can hit it soon. Just to like downplay your skill a little bit. It's okay. And I feel like nobody ever does that. And I know it's a risky game and you risk going to tribal. I don't think Hunter was going to go home no matter what. So I'd be a little bit more gentle with it and like try not to show off too much.
I completely agree. Yeah, I would. I feel like I would do the same. But I also feel like I would play a risky game in that where, to be honest, I might throw and go to tribal council just see what happens. Why not? You know, like I like that's just the kind of game I would play. So
Yep.
in
Just
general,
for funsies.
I
See
would
what
want to
happens.
downplay everything at all
Yep.
times just to kind of play in hard mode. But that's me.
I love that. All right, let's get to my favorite potentially segment and storyline of Survivor ever. You ready for this?
Is it Charlie being a Swifty?
No, that's one of my least
Jumping
favorites
off?
actually.
Are you talking about the
It's
jumping?
Mariah being incapable of jumping. Oh my god. It's one of the most crazy things I've ever seen is her and here I thought the way they were talking about it was gonna be one of those challenges where you have to jump up and like hit the thing, hit the key, and then like
Hmm.
swim for the key. No, it was just literally you need to jump off this tall thing. It's like you can step off and you'll
Yeah.
be fine.
No, that's what I'm saying. She didn't even need to jump. She could have just ran. She could just run straight. Just run straight. That's all you have to do.
Watching her jump and get like 2 inches off the ground.
Here's the thing. Like my 2-year-old daughter can jump. She just jumps all the time now. Like just flat on the floor. She'll just jump across the room. How do you not know how to jump? I don't like I physically cannot comprehend how that works.
I bet your daughter gets more airtime than Mariah does.
I think she does. And I don't even remember teaching her. It's just like I think it just like comes like it's just a natural thing. Like, oh yes, if I do this, my feet will leave the ground.
Yeah, I thought it was awesome. I know we're making fun of her a little bit. I think it was just really funny, and I think that was kind of the point, and she kind of played into it a little bit. But yeah, it was crazy. To me, it was like, is she jumping wrong? Like, could I fix this? Like, and help her to jump normally? It just
Yeah.
blew my mind.
I will say, to tie this in with the rest of the tribe, I think this tribe is definitely just all good vibes right now. Like
Oh,
they are
such good
just,
times.
and I think you have these characters, right? You got the Charlie and Ben just naming songs. You got Ben in
Mm-hmm.
general, right? You got like these
Yeah.
girls who are like a little quirky and just like to goof around, and then Mariah trying to jump, and so I think like I'm very fascinated to see like what happens when they actually have to go up against each other and face some
Mm-hmm.
tension, because right now they're just having a good time. Everything they do, every segment, it's just like haha. Even, and we'll get to it in depth, but like Jem's whole thing hiding the clue, they're all just goofing around like haha, we have this clue,
Yeah.
let's all go together. Like you guys are not treating this the way it should be treated right now, but good for you. I like the vibes, I guess.
Also, what's Jem like? All right, Jem's great. Love her. She's the best in the season, obviously, because I said that earlier. What's the end game here? Because they're gonna learn that she found it eventually, and when she has the idol, and it's like you made us dig in those ants that stung us for hours, and you knew that it wasn't there. Like, are you kidding me? Like,
I
I just don't see. I guess hopefully it's deep enough in the game that they're like, oh, cool, you got us.
I have the same thought. First off, I do love it. I love the
Yeah.
move.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
love any time um you get somewhat more of an evil villain move, because this isn't a nice thing, right? Like, uh,
No,
but I love it. Like, do more of it, please. But yeah, I had that
especially
thought
when it
too.
works, and they're like, I think Tim is way overplaying this and working way too hard. I think he did it. Like that's so great. That's so much fun.
Well, I think it was great too because she wasn't the one to initiate that either. I think it was Mariah, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first one to bring it up. So like,
And she was just like, yeah,
perfect. Yep, exactly. But yeah, I did wonder, like, what do you do? Because at some point, theoretically, you're gonna either have to play this or get to Final Tribal and then be like, I didn't have to play this, right? But like, people are gonna find out you had it the whole time.
mm-hmm.
You are gonna have to play this the exact correct way because there's a million ways this could go wrong, and probably only a few where this works in your favor, and you play this off as like a, no way, you did this, you pulled it off, and I don't know. I don't know if that's how everyone's gonna feel.
Yeah. It's a risk, but I like it. I wouldn't take it though. Oh, that's so risky. Not with new people. I don't
I
know.
think there could be a way where maybe she plays the idol at some point, and she plays it off as it not being the same one as whatever that was.
Mm-hmm.
So it could
Yeah,
be
you could be
like,
like, oh, I think Tim had it, and we voted him out, and he didn't have it.
or just
Like
like, oh
he
yeah,
got
at the
voted out.
merge I found it. I found it at this camp. Oh, I found it at a challenge. Like there's a million places you could find it, right?
True. Yeah, yeah. So you
I,
don't have to tell him for sure where you found it.
I don't know if the Beware Advantage specifically stated it was an idol. I can't remember, but you could just play it off as if, oh, that Beware Advantage, we never found out what was at the end of it.
Weird. We dug right where it told us to, but we didn't find anything.
Yeah, I
That's
think
a deep hole too.
it was. The other option I think is if you do tell some people about it, so at least you're not the sole one that's isolating.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
therefore, it's like two or three of you kind of planting it on Tim, so that when it does come out, it's like, oh yeah, our alliance was aware of this, rather than,
Hmm.
oh, you're the only one who made all five of us look stupid.
I don't know who she should trust in that crew though. I don't know what the lines are because we've
No,
seen
we
these
don't know at all.
connections, but we don't know anything. Like even I would say we know more about Nami when it comes to like where the lines are being drawn and who the target's going to be, which makes me wonder: are they going to be go to tribal at all?
I don't know if they will. That's my prediction, is that Green will not go to tribal until the merge, because you're right. We don't, like, who is the bottom? Maybe Tim. That's who I would
Feels like Tim is.
guess,
Yeah.
but only because he's the least he appears to be the least integrated with like the
Mhm.
vibes. Tim's only 30. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wait, is
He
Ben
seems.
older than him? Ben's older than Tim. Wow.
Oh, weird.
That is weird. Only by a year, but still. That doesn't.
Tim gives older vibes than he is, for sure.
Well, I think because remember he had that parent alliance with Maria apparently.
Yeah. Oh, I
Which
remember the
where has
parents' alliance.
Maria
I think
been?
I
I feel
forgot.
like we haven't seen anything of Maria.
Well, they talked to her and told her, and she was like, "Yeah, that makes sense that it's Tim." It didn't feel like she really felt that way. The way she said it, though.
No, yeah, I really don't think Green's going to tribal because there's just like there's no
Mhm.
top, there's no bottom. I think like initially it was pitched to us like, oh, we're gonna have like this female thing, Charlie's Angels. We have Charlie and Maria. We have the parents. We have, and none of it has come back. It's like every time they pitch to us like this alliance or this duo, we have never seen that come back
Mhm.
to us, which is
Mhm.
so confusing, which makes me wonder, is all of it not real or does it keep changing, or which one will we see at the merge actually be the one that's solid?
Yeah. The interesting thing is, I think Ben's not in any of those, is he?
No, I think the only real connection we saw like strategically was maybe him and Charlie day one when they had to do that challenge together.
Yeah, I think that's literally it. Which is, but yeah, still Tim is the target that they're going for. So yeah, this is just a fascinating group that it. I feel like we saw a lot of them specifically in this episode when it was the Mariah jumping and Tim being the target and Jem hiding the thing, but still, we don't know what the lines are.
No, it's all vibes. All good vibes.
All vibes, all good vibes, dude. Positive vibes only.
Yeah, it's just I feel like I could literally just like roll a dice and of like who I think is going to go the farthest here. Actually, I think Tim. Tim is like I can confidently be like he's not going to make it far.
Mm-hmm.
But that's pretty much it. Anyone else, I'm like it wouldn't surprise me if they go to final 6. Any one of them.
Yeah, yeah, not at all. This is an interesting tribe.
I will say though, I'm definitely much hotter on Gem now. I think you did have something there.
That means a lot to me.
Like on anyone on this tribe, like I think episode 1 or 2, was like, oh, Charlie Maria, maybe this will be. But like I'm like, nah, I think Gem is. I think Gem's the person on this tribe.
It was all from a confessional in the first episode where I was like, "Ooh, there's something there."
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see.
Anything else about this tribe or this
I
episode? I
think that's all
guess.
I got, man.
Did you see anything about Jeff's interview about this episode?
No,
So he has his podcast. Quite a few
doing it with
people.
D.
Yes. He just makes me laugh now after her whole saga and controversy. It's
Yeah.
just a wild situation. Anyway, sorry. Um, he was talking about this episode and talking about specifically casting Bhanu and brought up that first he said he would do it again in a heartbeat. Where like, oh, would you do it? He's like, nope, 100%. Like, this is the person we want to cast. And then he pointed out he was pretty critical about the critics about Banu, as far as like people like saying that he shouldn't be playing the game. And he said, I want you to look at how Tiffany, Kenzie, and Q handled him. Right? They all were, for the most part, patient with him. They wanted to train him. They wanted to help him be better at the game, rather than just critique his game. And that's why they're playing Survivor, and that's why you're not. That was essentially what he said.
Yeah.
um, so I don't know. I mean, you don't have to have a lot of thoughts on it. I just thought it was fascinating with bringing up that uh, Jeff is looking for those people, I guess, that are more. I don't even know. Like, I don't even know what he means by that necessarily, other than he wants
He
people that are going
thinks.
to help other people, I guess.
I mean, if he thinks that me being on here on a podcast with you and criticizing Banu is how I would respond in the moment, that's a pretty crazy thing to just assume. I think there's a lot of people who have been critiquing him that would handle that really poorly, but just because we're in a situation where we're trying to enjoy the game and he seems like he's not really playing the game for the reasons that we want or whatever it might be, doesn't mean that if I was in that situation, I would be a tool bag to him. Like, I see what he's saying, but and I guess maybe it's to the more outspoken people that, yeah, that's probably true about, but I don't, yeah,
No,
I guess I see it.
I agree completely with what you're saying. I think there's a
Yeah.
big difference of like we're not playing Survivor. Clearly, I would put up a front, right? Like I would be much more like I'm not trying to win over any alliances doing this podcast here. That's not my
Mhm.
goal.
I
If
might have snapped like Kenzie, but I would have apologized like Kenzie.
if I'm on the island, I am being as fake as I can possibly be. I promise you that.
That's the game, dude.
Here's his exact quote. He said, "But if you found yourself only critiquing Bhanu and making fun of his emotional outbursts and his desire to win 1,000,000 hearts when there's $1,000,000 on the line, and you found yourself asking, how did this guy get on the show when I can't get on the show? Well, you have your answer. You're just not self-aware enough to see it." Jeff Probst. Yeah. So you
I
know.
don't like it. I don't like it.
My favorite. I think my favorite quote tweet for that quote. Someone said, "Jeff is one of the best hosts ever, but maybe not the best producer ever." I was like, "Huh, that's a good separation." Whatever.
I
Okay.
think it's a fair thing. Fair to say.
Well, there we go. Let's really hope, everyone. Let's send some good vibes out there that we get a good episode next week and that the season picks up. Come on, let's send
Hey.
Green to Tribal Council next week. That
Last
would be
season
fun.
stunk at the beginning too. We still have time.
No, and it's like we've been saying, it's the exact opposite effect of Big Brother. It's like it starts off slow, always has the potential to get kicking, where Big Brother's the
Mhm.
exact opposite. Brother starts off swinging from the fences and then just really slows down.
Mhm. Mhm. Absolutely.
Very odd dynamic. But there's that. All right. So for more episodes, visit notgameonpersonal.com. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere listen to podcasts, really. We're on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube at NGAP Pod. That is at NGAP Pod. I'm Nathan. This is Tony, and we will see you next time.
12 seasons, 2 pals, 1 podcast.